Welcome to the Princess Power Hour, where we show you how to go from pauper to powerful by transforming your health, your wealth, and your relationships. Here's the princess of podcasting herself, Natalie Thomas.
Hello, everybody. Thank you and welcome. We so appreciate you joining us today. I'm really excited about our topic. We are going to be talking to Salona Carlise. She's coming to us from Connecticut. We're going to be talking about be the heroine of your own joy. And I think that means creating your own joy and not depending on somebody else to make you happy. But listen to this. We're going to be talking about making the shift from shame, brokenness, unworthiness, to maximizing joy. And don't we need that? I'm going to tell you straight up, I'm in a funk today. I was kind of feeling depressed and yucky earlier, like to the point where I'm like, wait a minute, I have so many things to be happy about and joyful about and grateful about. And why am I feeling this yuck? Like, am I picking up somebody else's yucky vibe? Like, where's that coming from? But we all have that kind of thing, but we're going to talk about maximizing joy. So before we get there, and before I tell you more about Salona, I'm going to tell you about my lip color of the day. This beautiful color is called Lexi Berry, and I think it's just such a cute color. But my favorite thing is that it is kiss proof. It is smudge proof. Is that cool, Salona?
Totally.
I am rubbing my face over here. For those of you that are just listening, the stuff does not come off. It'll stay on 4 to 18 hours. You can grab some of that over at lipstickkissesandlove.com. You pick a color and you pick a gloss. We have a bunch of glosses. I use Glossy Gloss a lot, but I have others. This one happens to be opal. It kind of puts a really neat little shine on there. There's my Lexi Berry. And you put on 3 light coats of this color. You lock it in with the gloss. That's why you need the gloss. It's the secret sauce that seals it all in. You can reapply gloss before you eat or after you eat, but you don't need to reapply that lip color. It's not coming off on your kids, your food, your dogs, your cigarettes, your wine glass, whatever it is you choose to do. So, switching back, Salona, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Natalie. I am so looking forward to being with you and showing up for your audience.
Well, I know you have a lot to bring them, and I'm going to read to them your bio right now, right after I scratch my eyeball here. Sorry about that, guys. So she is a self-realization coach, a transformational guide, and a feminine embodiment facilitator. Like, I love that part. It doesn't roll off the tongue, but oh my gosh, we need that. So Salona guides women on the journey into radical self-love and back to their essential wholeness. She's passionate about supporting her clients into the path of their soul's most magnificent unfurling, so they can experience the fulfillment and freedom of being fully expressed as all of the women they aspire to become. Through her body-centered approach, Salona empowers her clients to experience the meaning and purpose they crave by intentionally creating an authentic, inspired life of their choosing. She teaches a profound set of processes to support her clients in uncovering their truth self by releasing the limiting beliefs and unconscious patterns that keep us stuck and under-realized. As a result, her clients are able to heal from deep-seated shame, move through fear, and into their most courageous selves. She can liberate their fullest potential while doing their soul's sacred work in the world. Her mission is to empower women around the world in discovering their innermost beauty, divine purpose, and personal joy in life so that they can embody their unique brilliance while flourishing in living radiant, enriched lives. And Salona, I love that. I really, really do love that. And I want to tell you something. I told everybody here about my funk today. I could have done the show. Nobody would know. Okay. And even when I'm not okay, I am okay because I have this within me, this knowing, this belief that, you know, God is with me and he's for me and not against me and all of those kind of things. But none of us are perfect. None of us have perfect lives, even though some of us can fake it and make people think that we do. But I think that it's important to admit our struggles so that other people, it's that taking off of that mask and saying, I'm real, you're not alone in the struggle. So how do you take these women through these steps to sort of peel the layers of that onion and transform their lives?
Well, I really was inspired when you started out by just taking off that mask right away for your audience and admitting that you were in the funk. And I think that I'll start answering your question by saying it really is that first step. I mean, I could think of so many first steps, but because you started us off that way, one of the most powerful steps is taking off that mask so that we can expose our realness, our humanness, our humanity. And what I can share is based on what has brought me to the place where I am and the ability to guide and mentor these women through these steps is that starting at a very young age, I really did feel deeply disconnected and was, it's not in my bio, right? But yeah, starting as a young teen, I really struggled. I battled with low self-esteem, poor self-body image, an eating disorder. And that was a time that I really started checking out on myself and on life. And it was my way to really shut down and cut myself off from my aliveness, from joy, from pleasure, from my femininity. And while I did heal through that eating disorder relatively quickly into early adulthood, I really struggled with a lot of deep shame, a lot of self-loathing, and a lot of self-doubt, and really felt this deep, deep inner hunger and a knowing that I was meant for more. A knowing I had so much more to embody and to express and to discover and to unleash. And I really beat myself up for all the ways in which I hadn't realized the full potential that I knew lived within me. And that beating myself up really took the form of comparing myself and just being so super critical, so perfectionist.
That's a real killer there.
Yeah. And it wasn't until I started traveling to places like Africa, India, Nepal, where, I was trapped in such a hole and really questioned whether my life was, whether it was really worth living anymore. And it wasn't until I traveled into these places that I saw these people who were living in these much more simple, to say the least, conditions without any of the, even the electricity or the roofs on their homes, or more than one or two rooms per household, or even a floor in their house. And they were just overflowing with joy and this just abundant inner freedom, despite their circumstances. And what really made its impression was when I was living in a Tibetan Buddhist nunnery in Nepal, in Kathmandu. And each day I would leave for the morning to study the language in a local school and then come back, and they would all just pour through the courtyard to welcome me at the gate. And they would say, "Are you happy? Are you happy? Are you happy?" And probably 10, 20, 30 of them. And they would insist on me answering before they would let go. And what was so obvious is that they clearly were. They were so
Really?
tapped in natally to this just deep, unshakable joy.
Wow.
And here they were, living a very ascetic lifestyle without a lot of the things that we are so attached to having and being in order to feel good about ourselves and our lives. So these impressions, that's really how this quest to know, wow, there is another option. And it's that quest that I really thought that's what I want to discover for myself. And it's what led me onto this path to really explore and dive deep into what are those key ingredients, those essential practices that we as women need to liberate ourselves from the areas in which we contract and hold ourselves back and play small and think less of ourselves and really short circuit our own pleasure and aliveness and expression, so that we really are empowered to lead the bright and brilliant lives that we know we are here to live.
You are touching on so many things. My brain is just going.
I'll slow down.
I have collected pictures of people from other countries, like let's say 5 people on a motorcycle, a family with their kids, sandwiched between them on a motorcycle. Or one of my favorites is liter soda bottles that a man had smashed and run rags through for thongs to wear for shoes. And I have a friend from Nigeria that he didn't have his first pair of plastic thongs until he was in his 20s. So I'm so relating to what you're saying, but when you said play small, I can think of the times in my life, because of the men in my life, I chose to play small because I was afraid that we would grow apart if I grew, and I held myself back. And I can't imagine how many other women are in those kind of shoes, playing small, holding back, not being the fullest that we could be, not letting our light shine because we're worried about what somebody else is going to think or what they're going to do. And ultimately, I had to be freed from those relationships to blossom and be the best that I could be. Now, I didn't seek that. I didn't want to be free. They divorced me. Both of them divorced me for other women, which is not a proud or good feeling. The first one I was married for 22 years, and he had a midlife crisis and jumped ship. And the other one, we were married for 10 years, and on our 10th wedding anniversary, had a baby with another woman while we're still married.
Ouch.
Yeah, that in my head, I think I thought that nobody would ever want me. I just saw myself as kind of this scarlet woman, twice divorced, what a terrible thing, and I'm in this incredibly happy, blessed marriage now that I didn't think could be possible. But it wasn't until I started really loving and accepting myself and walking in peace and joy that I could attract all these better things.
Absolutely.
So, I am hearing everything you're saying, and I'm so agreeing. And what an amazing experience to get to live in Tibet and in a nunnery. And how long were you there?
I was there for a couple of months. Well,
Wow.
Nepal itself, it was over 4 months. The nunnery was just a short period of that. So
that's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. How did that all open up to you?
Well, I had started at a very, what was I, in boarding school age, probably by age 16 or 17, I really had this growing hunger for the Eastern religion and philosophies, and started reading things around Zen Buddhism and meditation, and had started practicing and studying whatever I could through books and what was available to me. And then it was just time to go be there and immerse myself and surround myself and just really, get all of my senses involved in kind of the roots of what I had been learning about.
Wow. Now, I know one of the things that you talk about is a body-centered approach for this healing and this uncovering. Tell us about that. What is it? What does it look like in your work? How does it show up?
That's a great question. Yeah, speaking of the body and just the senses, as I was just sort of taking myself back to those travel experiences, embodied, I think one of the things I talk about is embodied presence. And there's a couple of kind of reasons why this is so essential in so many areas of our life. First of all, so much of our suffering and our pain is caused by us basically leaving ourselves, leaving the moment.
Tell us more. What does that look like?
Yeah, it's well, if we think of the traumas that we've experienced, or the assault, the traumas, the pains, the challenges, there's often a flavor of someone else abandoning us, rejecting us, betraying us, pushing us away, leaving us. And in that moment of pain and trauma, we did that because we did not have the emotional bandwidth to process it, we at that time also dissociated from life, from our own experience, our own embodied experience. It was too overwhelming to be with.
I get what you're saying, and I can relate, and I will raise my hand. Okay, everybody listening, I've been doing this, and I've been doing it lately. But let me run down to you kind of a picture of the last week. We went to a mediation over this home. We bought this amazing, big, beautiful home. And within less than a month, uncovered $150,000 of repairs that needed to be done that were undisclosed. Wow. And we were very unprepared for that, very shocked by that. And we're trying to talk to these former owners, and all of the contractors that are coming out are saying there's no way these people didn't know. And the inspector didn't catch it. I mean, we're talking the roof leaking, the windows leaking, the doors leaking, the pipes leaking, and a lot more than that. And the realtor would say to me, "You're so calm." It was like it turned into like the House of Horrors. It was like every day a new thing. The cable guy came to put in the internet, and he says, "Oh, by the way, did you know that tree's it's dying and it's going to fall over and hit your house?" And you just kind of like, what do you do? So I compartmentalized in order to be able to cope with all of this. And, my husband wasn't here yet. I was handling it all by myself. But so we had to go to mediation with them. And I really worked to go in a spirit of peace and love, and not accusatory, but just, how can we negotiate, just solve this situation? And they were very angry. They left without saying goodbye. They've hired an attorney since then, and I mean, it is what it is. But in the last week, my husband's his brother died. We bought a puppy that got here from the breeder, and it wasn't a puppy, it was a 5-year-old. But anyway, he had a genetic disorder. We had to send it back, but I've lost a lot of money in this airfare and the vet bills and different assorted things. Then, had another dog that we were supposed to be picking up on the 6th, and I got a phone call, and it has heartworms, and so that one is not materializing. That lady refunded my money within 5 minutes, which was really nice. I appreciated that. My son was in the hospital last week. So those are just a real small nutshell of the things I can think of off the top of my head. And I kind of have to just slow down, breathe, and I feel like if I feel it too much, it would be overwhelming. Does that make sense? So I am relating. I'm not saying that I'm handling it correctly, but I'm relating to what you're talking about for sure.
And you're clearly, in observation and witness to know, sometimes you're in it, and then sometimes you have enough distance to see, oh, that's how things are, how this series of events is impacting me, and this is what it's costing me, to leave myself, leave presence, get so overwhelmed that I'm actually dissociating and not really embodied and grounded and kind of anchored into my truth, my wholeness, my center, the moment. The being embodied has so many, so back to, let me kind of do an overview. Some of the why we want to be more embodied is that it is the source of unconditional safety. Out of unconditional safety can then expand into unconditional freedom. We can elaborate on that if you want. Another reason is that why we want to be in our bodies, or the benefit it has to us, is that it's how we connect to our truth and our wisdom, our knowing, so that we're not outsourcing our power. For all of these reasons, we're not outsourcing then our safety on changing conditions or people coming and going, or, where the wind blows in life. We're not outsourcing our answers, our direction, our guidance, our wisdom, our power, which is our power, because it's in how we're internalizing, kind of how we're interfacing with life, how our body is kind of reading that's where our answers, our truth, so that we can really tune in to what are we experiencing, what are we feeling, how does this feel? Does this feel contracting? Does this feel expanding? Does this feel good? Does this feel heavy? All of that is the language of our soul communicating to us, breadcrumb by breadcrumb, the compass, the roadmap towards our fulfillment. Otherwise, we're listening to all these other external messages, and where we can get derailed. A third reason why embodiment is so powerful and beneficial to our fulfillment is that so much of what the reason, I have this, what a lot of my clients, a lot of women I speak to can relate to this always striving but never arriving momentum.
Oh, yes.
Right. Who cannot raise their hand?
Oh.
What we're always chasing, whatever, we're always chasing and projecting our happiness, our pleasure, our joy, our fulfillment, our safety, our okayness,
on
our
something,
on
the boyfriend, the husband, the child, the house, the graduating, the job. I get yes.
Oftentimes it's at least a little bit, if not way out into the future, someday when XYZ.
Yes, rather than now, in the moment. Got it.
So the reason we stay on this, this cycle is just to all of you listening. And Natalie and I can tune into this too. Just kind of think of the last time, maybe an hour ago or a week ago, when you were in this drive to I have to get somewhere else, someplace else, so that I can feel enough. I can be enough. I can have enough. I can have done enough to finally maybe feel worthy, feel deserving, feel good about myself, feel good about my life. So think about what the motivating factor was. What were you after?
Yes.
We're only ever after one thing, and that is a feeling.
Yes.
So when we are in that striving but never arriving momentum, or when we're leaving and abandoning ourselves, or when we're outsourcing our answers and our guidance, we're not embodied. When we're not embodied, we're never actually home to experience what it is we are running after so quickly in the first place.
Yes, makes perfect sense. I'm going to real quick throw out the opposite. My husband and I were having a conversation, and I really enjoyed that we were just sitting there and we're talking, and there wasn't any stress or striving or rushing around today. I mean, usually if we're not working on work, we're working on, let's say, the house, because there's so much to be done. And part of the conversation was, honey, in the beginning, when you were not here and the movers were not here yet, I thought I could get all of this stuff done before you came and before the movers got here, and I could get the wood floor in and I could get this done. And I said, I realized that the house was a marathon and not a sprint. And now that all these catastrophes have happened and it needs so much more than we realized, I said, we have to just accept it's a marathon. It's going to take a while. Maybe it'll take a year. I'm not unpacked yet. Okay. And because of all this stuff, and there were problems with the movers, they lost 40 of my boxes. I have to deal with that. And, I have, it's right at tax season. My bookkeeper was in a car accident, had a stroke from the airbags. And then the new person I hired, his wife got breast cancer. And, my books for my business are not ready for taxes. They're just challenges. But I said, we have to just accept that this is a marathon and we have to enjoy the journey. We have to choose. Yes, it can become overwhelming that there is so much, but rather than looking at it that way, it's just a step. Each day is a step, and we're just going to enjoy those steps. So I'm hoping that supports the opposite of what you're talking about, because we can choose our reaction, but it's a learned response. Yes?
Absolutely. Yes, that's a beautiful intention. And that's exactly right. It is. We want to detach, take back, like this is about, this is speaking of being a heroine of your own joy, is look at what you're attaching your joy, your happiness, your fulfillment, your enoughness, your pleasure to. Who is it? What is it? Where is it? And when is it? And realize that you can't, I talk about this codependent relationship with life. We can, as long as we're waiting for life to comply with how our ego would like things to show up to meet our needs and make us happy, it can't deliver that to us. Pleasure is an inside job. Joy is an inside job. Like you said, it starts with, yes, realizing our perception of what is happening. It's not what is happening or not happening that determines our experience. It's our perception. It's our attitude.
Yes, the choosing of the response. Absolutely. Yes. I agree with that, because I think if we're expecting life or this other person to satisfy us and fulfill us, we've set ourselves up to be a victim, haven't we?
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Yeah. We can't
at their mercy. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about that more. We're going to take a real quick commercial break. And everybody, when we're back, we're going to continue to talk about being the heroine of your own joy.
Are you looking for ways to improve your life? Did you know that there are ancient texts with all kinds of great information about who we really are? Once you get that down into you, it's life-changing. So I have compiled some of the best for you to listen to for 15 minutes every morning. It's so simple to get it into your spirit about the amazing person that you are. Feel better about yourself. And with these recordings, you actually get 6 free bonuses. So I want you to go after the show to scripturalaffirmations.com for more information.
Right. Thank you, Salona. This is just incredible. What are some more steps that we can take to make proper choices, that we're not depending on exterior things to be filled with joy, to radiate love and light to this world, and just feel that inner, beyond happiness? Joy is deeper than happiness, isn't it?
It is. This is a whole interview in and of itself, is really how does one define happiness? How does one define joy? How does one define pleasure? And you listeners can just start to reflect on that yourself as you're listening, because knowing what turns you on, lights you up, feeds you, is the first step to getting it. So that's just kind of a side note. I loved what you said, Natalie. One of the is absolutely what I was in the middle of saying before the commercial, is you take, nothing about it. I'm just trying to grab my thought there, was the completion of that thought was, once you kind of recognize, oh, what am I attaching my joy to? And then, like you said so beautifully, is the goal has to be not getting that thing you've attached it to, but making the journey, make the goal the journey, not this imaginary destination. Like when you have reclaimed all those boxes, or when you've gotten the taxes finished, or when you've unpacked, right? And it is not easy. We default to wanting to be rescued from our
Oh, yes.
you know?
Yes.
And it's, we're like, we want it to be given to us, but no, this is a level of mastery and discipline and devotion of, you know, do you want to feel good now, or do you want to keep postponing your life and, you know, living a half-lived life until that destination? So back to the embodiment. I know you asked me about practices, so let's see how we can weave those in. But the experience of being present and being in your body is key to you actually being home and being open and being available and ready to actually have the feeling that you're chasing after and waiting for. It's about giving to yourself and letting yourself have more of what it is you want now. And it is making a habit of choosing where you put your focus.
Yes.
It is looking at, examining, what are all the ways that I'm actually short-circuiting my happiness, my joy, my pleasure? What are the ways I'm actually not even acknowledging and letting myself truly savor what of all of that is already here? If we also, and I know I'm going off on lots of tangents, but it's just such a colorful
this is
question.
important. Mm-hmm.
But again, what is this future that you're chasing after, that you're attaching your joy to? Kind of refine it down, distill it down to like a core essence experience. What it represents to you, what you imagine becoming possible for you, what you imagine being able to feel. It's sort of, you can finish this sentence, when XYZ happens, or when I have XYZ, then I will feel, I will be thinking, I'll be believing, I'll be doing, I'll be wearing, I'll be saying, you know, fill in all of that. And then number one, look at where those opportunities, where you're already doing that, or where those opportunities are available to you right now in your current life.
Because sometimes we don't give ourselves credit even for things we're already doing. I can remember being in a Tony Robbins business thing, and they're talking about, you know, you should be saving 15% for your retirement. And at that time in my life, I was sitting there kind of all freaked out and everything. And then all of a sudden I went, wait a minute, I'm doing that. But I was doing it so effortlessly because I had designed it into my life that I forgot I was doing it. So I'm sitting there getting all this shame and feeling guilty and, you know, inadequate and underfunded and all of this. And it's like, wait a minute, you're covered. But
awesome, yeah.
How often as women do we divert to the shame and the beating ourselves up, right?
Yeah, exactly. So to your point, the shame and the beating ourselves up, the self-criticism, the self-judgment, like where we're not already enough. So the other thing is to examine, what are the stories you're telling yourself about why you can't feel pleasure in the body that you have now, why you can't feel joy in the life you're currently living. And notice that whatever those reasons you come up with are not because of the circumstances or what is or isn't happening. It's because of what you are believing about them.
Perspective.
So right there, you know, you can alchemize your shame into joy, into celebration, into freedom, like liberate yourself from your own story about the conditions you're imposing upon your joy and your pleasure. So you want to start challenging, like we haven't said this directly, Natalie, the whole time, but it is to examine those shadows and challenge them, and getting radically honest about what you've been tolerating and this belief system you've been buying into yourself and realize that's a choice. And then there's the light side, and that is what does feel good, what does feel better, what is between me and joy right now. And giving yourself permission to desire more for yourself and to practice. This is expanding your pleasure potential. That is the flip side of the spectrum, is how committed, how devoted you are and to your pleasure, to your joy, to your desire. And because we've talked about it a bit, Natalie, I just want to mention, the 3 top joy killers, pleasure killers, are putting other people first, taking on expectations, feeling unworthy, or believing it's not possible. So just, again, another area to examine. And then it's choosing. So we need to, it's about giving ourselves permission to desire again. Fanning the flames of our desire, fanning the flames of what does bring us joy, and then practice being able to sustain that for longer periods of time. Build your habit of focus.
I know that there's so much more. I want you to finish that sentence, and I'm just really aware of the fact that you have another appointment you have to get off to. There's so much we could just keep unpacking and digging and digging.
I know, it's hard to stop.
And I feel bad for every time I've interrupted you, but we have to tell everybody about, you've got some special gifts for them and how to reach out to you, but let's finish that thought.
Yeah, I was pretty much, I think we've given them some pointers to start working with. But it's really really think of what it is you want to expand, what it is you want to manifest, and put more of your attention, your focus, become devoted to that, because that's what outpictures into your life, into your circumstances. So, and what's great is that both the free gifts that you'll show on your site will support them in they're 2 very different gifts, but they're going to support them in really integrating everything we've talked about. One of them, 3 essential keys to liberating yourself and getting what you want. That definitely addresses some deep healing around the shame and the unworthiness and the self-judgment, and really alchemizing that into celebration and self-forgiveness and liberation. And then the other one is a real more practical, it's a 5-part audio, they're both audio series, and that one has a daily template. It's called the Feminine Soul Fulfillment Formula. So that's we're talking about kind of the shadow work, and then the light side, where you'll actually be able to really, it's some of my favorite daily practices to really nurture your soul, your joy, your pleasure, and turn the volume up on those, on that energy, and have a real structure and daily practice around it. So that'll set you up if you're feeling called to dive into any of those, to kind of take what we've been talking about into your own life and integrate it, embody it, and benefit from it.
Well, and that's a perfect ending, because 2 women that are willing to do this work, you can go from being a pessimist to an optimist. Your life can be changed, whether you consider yourself a realist, whatever. I was talking with somebody the other day, and their concept was, my boss is stealing from me because they're not paying this much. And that's the reality. I said, that's not the reality. That's the meaning you put to it. And the reality is you agreed to work for that much money. And we kind of talked it through, and he's still not quite understanding the nuances of it. But again, as we do this work, There are such benefits. And I think that everybody that's been listening can see that Salona has had some amazing content. She hasn't really had enough time to get it out there and unpack it. I would really, really encourage you. Check out our website. That's going to be on our princesspower.com website, which I want you to say your website to everybody so
Yes,
that they can hear that, please.
It is my name. It's salonacarlile.com.
Okay. Spell both of them for them.
Okay. SalonaCarlisle.
Perfect. And be sure to grab those gifts, and be sure to please, please, please share the show, like, comment. All of those things help us in the search engine rankings, and it helps your friends and family learn about Salona and what she can do to help you, because we can change our lives. And as we change, others around us change, the world begins to change. My life is completely different from doing this type of work than when I was the mom living in the mobile home for 16 years and not having enough money to buy, basic food treats for my family and feeling trapped. Never dreamed I would start a multi-million-dollar multinational business. And it is so amazing what becomes possible when they do the work. So I want to thank you again, Salona, for joining us. Thank our audience for joining us. And everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the Princess Power Hour with Natalie Thomas. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit princesspower.com or on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, and Twitter at PP Princess Power. Until next time, work smarter, not harder. Have a question for your host of Princess Power Hour, Natalie Thomas? Contact us at www.princesspower.com or tweet us at PP Princess Power.